Sawadee and good afternoon. Thank you once again for tuning in today to the English language briefing from the Center for COVID Situation Administration, or CCSA. Today is Wednesday, the 23rd of February, 2022, and the last of our regular 2 English language briefings for this week. As you may be aware, the CCSA committee was chaired today by the Prime Minister. The meeting monitored the global and regional situation as usual, and for today in particular discussed in detail domestic regulations and adjustments to the various channels for entry into the country, including for the test and go scheme and others. With regard to the global situation, the meeting noted that over the past week, the situation globally continues to reflect a steady rise in the number of new infections in certain parts of the world, especially in Asia, including Thailand. And for obvious reasons, the regional situation was looked at very closely, especially the fatality rate in relation to the rising infection numbers. A comparison was made between the fatality rate during the Delta surge and the current fatality rate in relation to infections within the current Omicron surge. In Thailand, as we have mentioned earlier, new clusters continue to be found in restaurants and schools, as well as construction workers' campsites. This was also extensively discussed this morning at the CCSA meeting, which continues to strongly encourage compliance with universal prevention and COVID-free setting measures. The implementation of bubble and seal strategies in campsites and schools was also discussed and continue to be recommended. The Prime Minister today also stressed the importance for all agencies involved to prepare the necessary standby arrangements for the management of a projected and continued increase in the Omicron-led cases, including home isolation and community isolation systems throughout the country. The meeting was assured that relevant agencies have enough surge capacity to deal with the rise in the number of cases, especially as a sharp uptick in the northeast and north of the country is now being monitored very closely. The CCSA General Meeting also reiterated today that those who are found to be COVID positive, and this actually is relevant for Thai nationals and foreign residents in Thailand in particular, that they can still seek medical attention as per their medical benefits and insurance without any changes. This was a reiteration that had to be made in response to speculation that certain benefits would no longer be included in what's called the Universal Coverage for Emergency Patients, or USEP. Let me turn now to the adjustments to the zoning of provinces that was discussed and decided on today, and you have that slide on screen for you. The only change actually that was made to the zoning of provinces is that Amnat Charan province is now in the orange or controlled area, and Nong Khai province is now in the yellow or high surveillance area. Turning now to what I believe would be of high interest to our English language audience, which is proposals to changes in requirements for entering Thailand. There was indeed a very long and thorough discussion this morning on relaxing some of the measures in relation to entry into the country. Specifically, the testing requirements for test and go were discussed extensively, as was the insurance requirement. In relation to the former, the second PCR test that is currently required for the test and go scheme will be changed to a self-ATK test, that is a self-administered ATK test. This was the proposal, and that would mean that those traveling to Thailand and entering into the test and go scheme would not need to book that second hotel night on day 5. as previous or as currently is the case. In relation to the latter, the requirement for insurance, specifically medical coverage that includes COVID treatment, this was lowered to at least $20,000 per person. This from the current $50,000 per person. All of these changes are expected to be effective from the 1st of March onwards, which means that those applying to Test and Go from the 1st of March onward would not need to book that second hotel night on day 5 and instead take the self-administered ATK test. And certainly, should you find yourself testing positive, you will be required, of course, to note that in the Mochana application. And should you require treatment, certainly you will be contacting local hospitals nearby. Let's return now to the usual updates that we have come to follow at these briefings, and that is the general situation in the country. New confirmed cases, a notable increase. We are logging at 21,232 cases. The total accumulated number is 2.7 million. And for today, the active cases of 173,605 cases. In that number, there are 882 in critical condition, and 229 on ventilators. New recoveries are logging at 16,662 cases, and unfortunately still logging new fatalities, although a low number at 39, a low but slightly increased number at 39. This brings us to a 0.82% fatality rate, which is still relatively low. The next slide that we have on screen for you reflect the current top 10 provinces with the highest number of daily COVID-19 cases. And topping the chart, again, is Bangkok at 3,079 cases today, followed by Chonburi, Samut Prakan, Nakhon Si Thammarat, and the list goes on there. An equal number of green and red numbers, green reflecting, of course, an improvement in the situation from the previous day, and red reflecting an increase in the number of infections. Let's turn now to another usual update, and that is Thailand Pass statistics. From the 1st to the 21st of February, Thailand Pass has received 306,056 applicants, of which 301,647 have been approved for entry into the country. That would total at 98.56% of those applying. The actual entrance for this period totals approximately 150,000. And let me run through very quickly the number of of top 10 countries of origin for those entrants through Test and Go. The first being Russia, and you have that on screen for you right now at 12,563 entrants, followed by Germany, France, UK, Singapore, US, UAE, Australia, Kazakhstan, and Israel at 10th place. Let's turn now to the progress in vaccinations in the country, and we will look at those numbers very shortly. Since the month of February, and yesterday indeed, we administered 269,473 doses of the vaccine, which increases the accumulated number to 122 million doses approximately. The total number of people who have received their first dose now stands at 53,221,513, or 76.5% of the total population, while those having received their second dose, stands at 71.2% of the total population. It's very close numbers there. Those who have received the booster dose stands at 19,424,111, or 27.9% of the total population. The meeting this morning actually also discussed progress in the development of COVID vaccines by Thailand. This may be of interest to some of you following this issue closely, and we have prepared a slide for you to do that. Currently, there are, in fact, 20 COVID-19 vaccines in the development pipeline, but let me, for today, share some updates on two of the most advanced vaccines that we are working on and that have progressed into clinical trial phase 2. Specifically, vaccine HXP GPOVAC has completed the second phase of clinical trials with satisfactory results on 250 volunteers. The vaccine is expected to complete its phase 3 trial on humans by the third quarter of this year. We have that second vaccine, CHULA-CoV-19, completing its phase 2 clinical trials with satisfactory results on 120 volunteers. This vaccine is expected to complete its phase 3 clinical trial by August of 2022. To date, the government has supported a total amount of 2,715.59 million baht, in the R&D process for our homegrown vaccines. That is all the updates actually that I have for today. And just a friendly reminder, as always, as new cases of the Omicron-led infection is on the rise, please do follow universal prevention guidelines to protect yourself, your friends, and your family during this time. And if you are in a position to do so, certainly get vaccinated. Stay safe. Have a good week. We will see you again on Monday, the 28th of February. Thank you. สวัสดีค่ะ